Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs with professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that walk the walk, talk the talk, been through all the things that we experience as small business owners, and have joined our platform to be able to help you apply some of those skills and experiences yourself to your own business. So thank you very much, first of all, for joining me and sharing some time with me and sharing some time with the audience. It's very generous and kind of you. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Sure. Hi, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. My name is Leah Heise. I am the founder and CEO of a consulting company called Gemini Twin Consulting. I primarily focus on mid-stage, early to mid-stage companies, and primarily in cannabis. I can tell you a little bit about why I went into cannabis if that's interesting to you. My far background was I was a prosecutor for the federal government for a very specialized niche of commercial fisheries and Endangered Species Act and marine mammal protection. I got very sick with a disease called chronic pancreatitis in 2001 and was told I was not going to live 5 years. My kids were 18 months old at the time. I have twin girls. Went home, focused on them, was in and out of the hospital more than 35 times, intensive care, sepsis, surgeries, chest tubes, just kind of existing. And in 2013, one of my doctors told me to try cannabis.
Oh,
I
wow.
had not been a cannabis user, so I did a bunch of research on it and started to use it to reduce inflammation in my body and to work with pain. Because of that, I was able to go off all of the opiate pain medications they had me on, as well as Xanax. And I decided once I started to feel better, and Maryland, the state that I live in, conveniently, right around the same time, synergistically, had legalized for medical cannabis, and they were doing a licensing round. I applied for one of those early licenses in the state of Maryland in 2015, and I was blessed enough to obtain that dispensary license. And since that time, I really feel like I've been in the right place at the right time and in that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, willing to take the risk to one, go into a federally legal industry, and two, to bet on myself and build businesses. Since that time, I've built and sold a dispensary. I've built what we call in cannabis multi-state operators. I've helped to build two of those and take two of those public. And then I also helped to build a science conference in the space and also sold that. So I've had four exits to date. And for the last 4 years, I've been helping other businesses figure out their pitch strategy, develop their organizational development and design, doing a lot of HR work. Right now, where we live in cannabis land, we're doing a lot of cost cutting. So I'm doing a lot of reassessment on FTEs and helping HR professionals become more strategic. And also doing a lot of coaching with other CEOs on different ways to think about how they're operating their businesses.
Sure. So if you could generalize the kind of a state of the union on the cannabis industry, I'm interested. I believe that, I mean, all the way as early as maybe 2013, I can remember having cannabis clients, businesses like, especially in Colorado, that were starting as grow houses, migrating to dispensaries. And it was very hard for those people to obtain and maintain payment solutions.
Mhm.
I believe that there is a lot of hype for good reason around the cannabis industry, and also most of the regulation, from what I understand, that's happened in that industry is more so on the what are you not allowed to do rather than what are you allowed to do. So where are we right now, and where do we expect to go with this industry in general over the next however long you feel is the accurate amount of time to forecast?
Sure. So right now, the cannabis industry is in flux. We have 24 states in the United States that have what we call adult use regulation, which means the product can be sold to anyone who's above 21. Um, and then we have, I think 44 states have some level of medical program. So we do, on a state-based level, have a lot of adoption. Um, Recently, when they did the continuing resolution to reopen the government, they banned a part of the cannabis plant called hemp. Hemp was a product that if you live in a state that does not have a medical cannabis program or has a limited medical cannabis program, you are likely to see a proliferation of hemp products in your convenience stores, your gas stations, even your bars. Some states like North Carolina and Minnesota have very regulated hemp programs. But what happened was there was a kind of a loophole, and I'm putting this in air quotes, in the Farm Bill that allowed hemp producers to create intoxicating hemp products that they sold in interstate commerce. Now, in the regulated cannabis space, we can't sell in interstate commerce. We can only grow, produce, manufacture, and retail our products inside of our state borders. So it created this tension between the regulated cannabis community and the intoxicating hemp community, because intoxicating hemp was allowed to have banking access, to get loans, to sell in interstate commerce, and to do all the things that we on the regulated side of the house have been trying to do for decades, right? Like access to payments. That's one of the things you talk about. We still don't have the ability to use the payment rails for like Visa and MasterCard in cannabis. We have been a little bit better about getting banking access. You don't get shut down as much as we were early on. We used to have like redundancies of like 3 or 4 bank accounts just in case
Sure.
one got shut down, we could move over. But we still don't have that. And everyone thinks that there's this great green rush in cannabis, and that cannabis is A, very easy to do, and B, that there's a ton of money in it. And there is money there, but we're paying like 70 cents on every dollar to the federal government in taxes because we're a federally legal industry.
Right.
So that tax burden really needs to be shifted. My hope is with the continuing resolution and them closing the loophole, that what will happen is we will finally see a rescheduling. That it was promised under the Biden administration. It didn't happen. I'm hopeful that the Trump administration will do this and reschedule the cannabis industry at least to a Schedule 3 drug, which would be as similar as a ketamine. That would then give us the ability to sell it as a medical product and to primarily alleviate that 280E tax burden. Now, what it still wouldn't give us is access to capital markets or banking,
Sure.
Which we will continue to fight for. I think, if you follow sort of the straight state trajectories in terms of what happens, you tend to legalize on a medical level first. They do that for a few years, and then eventually they get to adult use and stuff lightens up. So my hope is that's what we'll see with the federal government. But we'll see. I think, in terms of the hemp cannabis head to head and this fight we've had, it's one plant. It should all be regulated the same. And I think both sides want that. We just need to figure out what that regulatory scheme looks like.
Sure. Have large players entered this game yet? My assumption with all little to no knowledge of your real industry is that once federal deregulation began to actually pick up some steam, that players maybe like an RJ Reynolds or something would enter this space. Are there players in this game now that you feel have the ability to speed up this process with pure buying power?
There are some players like British American Tobacco's in.
Okay.
And they're making some bets on buying assets. But we haven't seen a lot of them, right? Like I know Philip Morris is on the sides. I know there's some big alcohol companies on the sides waiting to do this. I mean, Total Wine and Spirits is selling and was selling hemp products and probably will, I guess, for the next year all around the United States. So they're in, and pharmaceutical companies are doing things like funding grows in South Africa to identify specific strain genomics so that they can utilize them for extraction for drugs. But you can't do anything until you get to Schedule 3 in the United States with that. So there are people making some plays. I think the alcohol lobby pushed hard against the intoxicating hemp side of the aisle because it's been shown that there's a lot of studies out there that show when people start consuming cannabis, they stop consuming as much alcohol.
Sure.
So, I mean, if I was inside of an alcohol distributor, I'd probably tell them to walk both sides and do alcohol and would have said do hemp and alcohol, then you continue to get market share. But, I don't know. They seem to have lobbied against that. So we're seeing some, but we're not seeing what I think will happen when we get some kind of nod of approval from the administration.
Sure. So where are you applying your skills now? The way that I usually kind of ask this question is like, what is that thing that you do well that helps you grow your business? It's very interesting to talk to you because you have to. It's a necessary evil for you to spend so much time kind of auditing the state of your industry in your mind. So, what is that thing that you're doing well that you're trying to apply to both your industry and your personal endeavors that you think can really kind of gain some traction for you guys?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, one is networking, right?
Mm.
Like I do a lot of networking. And the other is exactly what you said. I pay attention to what's going on, and then I do a lot of thought leadership on this. And I listen to what other people are doing. I lobby on the Hill. I listen to what's happening on a state level in individual markets to really understand strategically how can you move a client through a path that they might need to do. Like, for example, one of the questions over the last 2 years or so, I mean 3 4 years I guess from the farm bill, has been whether or not regulated cannabis companies should go into the hemp side of the aisle. So for example, for a brand that I was consulting for, we told them, like, go do both. You're already in regulated cannabis, build your brand in intoxicating hemp at the same time, because you can advertise, you can do all the things that a cannabis company can't. And maybe if it's banned at some point, then people will still look for that brand because perhaps there's some brand loyalty. Though we don't see a ton of brand loyalty yet in cannabis, but
Sure.
we'll see what happens with this hemp switch, if anything actually ends up happening with it.
Sure. Well, what is the band-aid for kind of the consumerism of cannabis? Because I know you're saying that there's not a lot of brand loyalty yet. And on the top of my head, I'm also in Georgia, so like we're
You
one of.
guys have medical.
Yeah, we have medical, and I still think that it's not like what most places are. Like I was just in Arkansas last week, and if you ask some of the consumers and college kids in Arkansas, it's like, oh, there are doctors that they're telling you what to say, and they're telling you how to answer these questions so that they can give you a medical license. For people that may or may not need that, they just find it the easiest access to continue to recreationally use cannabis. I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe a lot of that is happening in Georgia. I don't know that I've ever met anyone with a medical license from Georgia. My best friend just moved back from Florida to Georgia and has a Florida medical license, and essentially told me Georgia's like one of the most difficult places to obtain something like that. But what is the solution for, like, who has to get into that game, and how do they have to present themselves to be the guy, the Budweiser or the Anheuser-Busch of cannabis? How do you be that recognizable brand? What is that value to the consumer for something like that, or is that still something that's kind of getting investigated?
I think we haven't figured it out, right? I think
Okay.
there's certainly companies that have tried that, and there are some recognizable brands. Cookies comes to mind, but Cookies was built as a lifestyle brand. It was
Right.
selling t-shirts and things like that before it ever pivoted into actually doing consumer products. I think, on the regulated side of the house, it's difficult to build a brand because
Sure.
if you're Anheuser-Busch, for example, and you're getting beer to market, you don't own the fields for the hops, right? Like, you're sourcing that from a variety of different places. You're bringing it over state lines to a brewery. Maybe you have a couple regional breweries. I'm not exactly sure how they're set up, but like, you bring it into a brewery, you brew your product, and then you sell it everywhere, all over the United States. That's not how it works in cannabis. In cannabis, if you're just, let's just pretend you're just a brand and you have like a pre-roll, this is what you're selling. You have to find a licensed partner in every single state to produce your product for you,
Right.
because you can't
Because of the
be
federal regulation, there's a box drawn around you, and if any part of anything that you do leaves that box, it's the same issue we have on the payment side.
sure, and you can't advertise,
Right.
right? So you can't do billboards, you can't um I mean, even here in Maryland, they're even cracking down on people having like sidewalk signs in front of their dispensaries.
Wow.
So how does the end consumer even know about your product? Like cannabis is a product that you really have to educate the end consumer to understand like how it works for them and things like that. But how do you do that when you have no ability
Yeah.
to interface them with them unless they're physically in a store? So how do you convert that person who may have chronic pain that needs to be off of opioids into a consumer that has to go to a very specialized store?
Right.
And what the hemp side of the house proved, I believe, to the masses is that you can advertise through Instagram just like other people do to the end consumer, and that consumer will convert.
Right.
They will become a consumer of a product. Um, yeah, it's there needs to be some middle ground. I get like nobody wants to be selling untested product to children that's just out in convenience stores, but I do think there's a path to truly creating brands, but that interstate commerce really is necessary.
Sure. What do you feel is out if we throw out the law side, right? And we look at things from a business standpoint. What do you believe is kind of the most difficult thing for people that are trying to get in from either a wholesale perspective or a retail perspective or whatever that may be? What is kind of the barrier to entry for that industry?
The biggest barrier to entry that I see right now is cash.
Oh, really?
Early on, oh, it's terrible. Early on, when I first came into the industry 10 years ago, you could get money for virtually anything. Venture capital was in, they were throwing money at you.
It was a
We
good
were
time.
building dumb things, like we
Yeah.
overbuilt. Maybe weren't as focused on, investor return as we should have been. And now it's an absolute barrier to entry because there's not been a nod from the federal government in terms of any forward trajectory on legalization. That all that capital is pulled back, and we are seeing companies under an overwhelming amount of debt as they continue to try to meet their federal tax burden and figure out how to operate. Because remember, this is a brand new industry. We haven't figured out the best way to grow the product, to manufacture the product, to sell the product. We're still, I mean, we're all just figuring it out. Like it's entrepreneurship at its core, right? At its
Sure.
heart. Like you don't really know what you're doing. You're just building. And there's metrics and stuff. But as these companies mature and are capable of obtaining more data and using more data, and increasing their margins and making sure they're not overweight on debt, I think it will be better. But I mean, there's licensees, for example, in the state of Maryland, I'll give you an example, where they issued 130 conditional licenses to these two social equity applicants. Less than 20 have gotten open so far.
Yeah, I was about to say, are they just sitting on the shelf?
They're just sitting. There just isn't any money. And
Right.
so unless you have money already,
So they have the full plan to execute every one of those license. It's just that if they had the resources disposable to them that frankly normal business people have, they would have executed that at a much 6x scale of what they've been able to do now.
sure, if I, wanted to open a dispensary in the state of Maryland and I could go to the small, the SBA and get a small business loan and take out $1.5 million so I'd have cash flow, I could build and cash flow my dispensary for like 18 months and then pay back the loan at a decent
Yep.
rate. That's
And
great. But
market and all of those other things
and
with the
all of
assumption you
those
would be able
things.
to do all the other things. Yeah.
Yeah, would be great. I mean, and there's also this thing that happens in cannabis called the green tax.
Mm.
So if you're looking, let's say normally the rent on a dispensary square footage would be like, maybe you're paying like $4,000 a month, right?
Mm.
Would be if you were a regular business, you'd be paying $4,000 a month. If you're a cannabis business, you're probably paying $8,000 a month
Mm-hmm.
because of the perceived risk to the property owner, they bump that up. And that's just not property, it's everything. Everything has this green tax on it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's a costlier business to run.
Yeah, that's insane. And Let me ask you a hypothetical. Um, let's say that you get a nod from the federal government today, right? Like, let's say maybe it isn't a law set in stone or legislation passed today, but you've got a conference that happens on TV that says, hey, here's the plan. Here's where we are. Here's where we're going. We're going to stop enforcing all of these ridiculous federal rules while we try to get something that's clear guidelines for both parties in place. Operate under your own conviction while we try to figure out the rules. Here is where we're going, right? So that they've taken the burden of the federal issue off of that industry without really giving you those guidelines. What is that overnight change? Like what is that culture change if someone, if Donald Trump goes and says treat cannabis businesses like normal businesses, we're opening up all of these resources to them because we believe in this industry and we believe it's a good thing. What are the dominoes?
So I honestly, I don't think that would be enough. I mean, the
Oh,
industry's
really?
seen, yeah, the industry's seen that over the years, right? We've had memos from the Department of Justice that says, leave the state cannabis businesses alone. We're still overregulated on the state level. We're still overtaxed on a federal level. You would have to do some type of rescheduling or something to
Mm-hmm.
get rid of 280E. It would have to be a legislative fix. There's not like a power inside of the government, I think, to do that
Right.
unless they rescheduled. And I think at this point, investors are skeptical, right? Like
Sure.
we've all been watching this play out for years. I mean, I think there would have to be like he would have to sign rescheduling. Like it
Right.
would have to be, and even then, I think it will be a tiptoe movement, and I don't think we're going to see an influx of movement probably until full federal descheduling unless they passed a couple of bills. Like there's a States Act, there's a Safer Act, which would give us access to banking, the payment rails, and to capital markets. I
Sure.
think if in a combination of things, if they could reschedule and give us access to payments and to capital markets and banking,
Sure.
I think then maybe the investors' fears would be assuaged a little bit, but I think at this point they've been burned,
Sure.
um, and it's all like a too little, too late kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
they've cried wolf too many times.
mhm.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I see the way that a lot of these dispensaries are doing payments now, and it's concerning to me. Um, with the knowledge of my industry that you have, to limit everyone to debit cards and be these ATM transactions where you're getting cash rebates for increased prices is super terrifying.
Yeah,
There's
there
no
has to be a better way. And
There
I'm
has to
super
be.
skeptical when someone comes to me with the payment solution and says, "Oh, well, we do this offshore, or it's crypto backed, or it's gift card backed, or like some weird money laundering ish." Like it is too like reeks of money laundering to me for me to be comfortable with any of those
Oh
types of
yeah, it
solutions.
is. When we started, like I said, 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, the rules weren't exactly as clear then, right? And so what we did was we found a sponsor bank in Colorado. We found a company that would allow us to brand as a payments company in Colorado, like a huge processor that would let us be the Colorado processor for those guys. And then we grabbed maybe 15 grow house slash dispensary clients from that point. And the only way that we could make it work was everything had to stay in Colorado. The transaction
Hmm.
rails had to be run in Colorado. I mean, if that data left Colorado and went to Atlanta and came back in faster than you can blink your eye, federally illegal. So we had to find a way to make all of those things run and leave the state without leaving the state. And then those people would grow up and they would, like, one of the sponsor banks that we had there was acquired by a bank in Wisconsin. All those and we probably could have let them run and saw whether they were in the scope of getting in trouble or not. But getting in trouble in that space is a death sentence. You don't
We will
even
lose our
want, yeah,
licenses.
you'll
Yeah.
lose your licenses forever. And so we had to go to those people and say, hey, the solution that we had, we were very confident in because federally it met the guidelines, and this bank has gotten acquired and it doesn't anymore. And we're terrified to be the reason that your livelihood changes. So you need to stop taking credit cards. We're shutting these accounts down, and it's better for your business in the long run because it's the right thing to do, even though it cost us a ton of money. And it was super upsetting for us. But it's like, hey, I mean, you have a little bit of fiduciary responsibility to be honest with people about the state of their industry. And so that's kind of where we've been, is we almost have the same perspective as the investors in a lot of things. Like, we've been asked to invest in pieces of technology or point of sale systems or different things geared toward the cannabis industry with the assumption that we're going to have to wait to deploy this until something happens. There's going to have to be changes before this can even come off the shelf. And how long are we willing to let you hold on to our money to see how long this shelf life is terrifying for a payments company, because we can't forecast that. We're not lobbying. We're not listening to legislation. We are, changing times on terminals and deploying equipment and helping people send invoices. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I can understand the skepticism, and from a consumer perspective, I can understand the speed at which things are not changing, which is, it's scary. But I think what you do is very interesting, because you're so in tune that I think that maybe some of the best money that people could spend is with someone like you that is allowed and able and willing and knowledgeable about how to consult with people in that industry to hopefully pave a path forward to success. So I wish you guys a lot of luck. I wish the industry a lot of luck as well. I know it all seems a little bit out of our control, but I think that people like yourself and some of the lobbyists that I've met in this world are fighting the good fight and a long fight, and I'm not sure when all of those things end. But for people that may be listening that may be in that industry, that if you're willing, I know that you said a little bit before this that you may be getting a new thing. Do you still want to do consulting? I was going to ask, how do people get a hold of you and reach out? But if that's something that you're growing out of, I don't want to put you in that position.
I mean, you can always reach out because I mentor and stuff too.
That's very kind.
And I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn, or you can, I'm at LinkedIn at Leah.Heise. And then you can also reach out to me. Actually, LinkedIn's probably the easiest way to do it. And I am considering a pivot into another startup, which is an AI ag tech company, agricultural tech, that will hopefully revolutionize the way that we grow cannabis, and in a very consistent medical grade manner. So I am considering going back into entrepreneurship because I love consulting. Consulting's fun because you get to see a host of problems, and you get to figure out the solutions, and you get to apply your past mistakes and help people fix those. And I love coaching and mentoring other CEOs and other people that are looking to go up that corporate ladder. But I miss getting deep.
Sure.
And I'm a builder at heart, and I miss building.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, if you decide to take that pivot and you make that leap, I would love to host you again and talk about that product a little bit, and maybe we can connect you with some people that would be beneficial for you to put that product in front of. I actually just left, like I said, I was in Arkansas last week. We actually just did a bunch of video work for an aeroponic farm out there that is they're producing a lot of herbs, vegetables, and things like that. They sell it to a lot of local businesses, to some consumers, but their biggest clients are the school systems. And they have a very robust, the way that they're controlling the quality of their product and the standard that they hold their quality to is pretty different to the rest of their industry. And they are willing to take the lumps on the head to make sure that they're doing things the right way. And I loved telling that story. The love that has to go into what they do to make their product what it is was very interesting for me to capture. So if my community, if my network, or myself can be of any benefit to your new venture when you decide, or if you decide to make that pivot, I would love to be of some assistance to you guys, whatever that may look like.
Thanks.
Yeah, anytime. And for
Appreciate
you guys, and for you guys listening, I think the biggest thing to take away, unless you're interested in this industry specifically, maybe you should reach out to Leah. I think the biggest thing to take away is that even this industry that seems inconsumable with the amount of things that you have to learn and understand, there are still people out there willing to share their skills and experiences with you to help you build a way in. That's true of pretty much every industry from my experience. People have been so gracious with me with their time and their energy and their efforts to be able to share some of those things with me and some of those things with you guys. And I hope that you're able to apply them to your own industry and to your own businesses. And I extend that same offer to you guys that are listening. If I can be of some help, please reach out to us. I would love to know what questions that you guys have, things that you're experiencing, so that maybe we can talk about those things on the podcast. You never know how many people are in the same place experiencing a lot of the same things as you, and hopefully we can come together as a community and help. So again, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's very, very kind of you. I'll link all of your information in the description for those of you that are curious about connecting with Leah. And until next time, burn the ship.